Hello guys, welcome back to Life with Paulie. It's currently Wednesday, November 19th when I'm filming this video, and today I'm going to be talking about the food stamp program, also known as SNAP program. I wanted to make this video because there's a lot of people worried out there about the having to reapply for food stamps. They're wondering what's going to happen, what's going to go on. If you are one of the people receiving SNAP or food stamps, or you have a family member that's receiving it, I suggest that you watch this video. I'm not only going to talk about that situation, but I'm going to also talk about fraud and actually who is responsible for the fraud. Okay, so there was a news story put out by the USDA, and some news stations picked up on it, and a lot of YouTubers picked up on it and been making videos about the USDA making everybody reapply for SNAP in order to get SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, to cut out fraud. I want to say to you guys that are on SNAP or food stamp benefits, I would not worry about this right now because the USDA still don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it to crack down on the fraud. And the reason being is I don't think they're going to cut anybody off of food stamps and then have them reapply, because that would be a total mess. For them to have to stop the payments again, as we all know, they just have the government shut down and they stopped all food stamp payments. Nobody got their SNAP payments the beginning of November when they were supposed to get them. They didn't know when they were going to get them. They didn't know when they were going to get them when the government reopened. It was very hard for them to start up the SNAP payments again and the food stamp payments again. Now, a lot of people here in New York got their SNAP benefits, food stamp benefits 24 hours after the government reopened. I am one that got my benefits as soon as the government reopened 24 hours after, because I did apply after my last couple videos. I did apply and I got approved. At first, when I applied, I didn't get an answer and my application was put on hold, because I applied and then about 10 days after I applied for help, they shut down the government. And then my application was put on hold for another 15 days, and then they approved my application and said that my first payment would be November 1st. However, as you all know, they shut down the government and nobody received their payments the beginning of November. So I did not receive anything until 24 hours after the government reopened here in New York. And a lot of people are afraid that their food stamps are going to stop and they're going to have to reapply again. I don't think they're going to do that. And if they do make you reapply, I believe that what they will do is send you a notice in the mail that you have to reapply before a certain date, sort of kind of like a recertification paper. We all know that, or some people know, when you're on food stamps, when you're on Medicaid, when you're on social services, you have to recertify every so often. I applied. Now I have to recertify by I think in another 10 months. September 2026 is when I have to recertify, which means they will send me a paper a couple months before September asking me to fill out all my information and recertify to make sure all my information is correct and up to date. I'm still living where I'm living. I'm still paying the same amount of rent. I'm still got the same income, SSDI, and everything else. It works the same way with a job. When you recertify and you have a job, you have to update your job information, whether you're making more, whether you're making less, whether you moved, whatever the case may be. You're actually supposed to do that if your circumstances change. Within 30 days, you're supposed to actually notify food stamps of your changes. If you make more money, you're supposed to notify food stamps. If you make less money, you're supposed to notify food stamps. If you move, you're supposed to notify food stamps. Social services, you're supposed to notify Medicaid. And a lot of people don't do that. Now, the USDA said they found a lot of fraud. I guess they found over 100,000 deceased people on the rolls for food stamps. Now, I don't know if those were people that were receiving food stamps and passed away, and then their relatives were receiving the food stamps, or if people were actually paying for actually applying for food stamps under their deceased members and receiving food stamps for those deceased members. It could be pretty possible because of the simple fact is states and cities are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Let me explain the fraud part of it. The fraud that they have found and the fraud that people are doing on food stamps is because of the cities and states people live in. They are not doing their jobs, and I have proof of that, and I will explain the proof in a second. As we all know, the chief in command has put out a couple statements that the Biden administration is responsible for this food stamp fraud. He was giving food stamps to everybody and anybody, which I could see about the food stamps for the immigrants or whatever the case may be, or the asylum seekers they were giving food stamps to and stuff like that. But the states and the cities are responsible, not Biden himself, not the chief in command that's in command right now. They are not responsible for the fraud. It's the states and the cities not verifying information. And my proof is right here. I'm going to tell you my story. I applied for food stamps. I went online. If you go online and you apply for food stamps, it's the same application that you would get in the mail, or the same application you would go down to social services, your local food stamp, and apply. They ask you different questions. They ask you for different documentation, to provide different documentation. Even online, there are spots where you can upload your documentation. You can upload a rent receipt. You can upload an electricity bill. You can upload a copy of your bank statement. You can upload a copy of your photo ID. Well, when I applied for food stamps, she sent me a letter in the mail stating I had to provide proof of how much I paid for rent. My rent. My rent receipt. That's all she asked for. So technically, all I had to do was send her a rent receipt, a landlord statement, or a lease to prove that I paid $900 a month here for rent. Now, I'm on SSDI. I pay $900 a month here in rent. I pay my own electric. I don't get Section 8 or help in any other way. So I use almost all my income from my bills. That's why I get help with SNAP and food stamps. But anyways, she only asked me for my rent receipt. Online, they ask for photo ID. They ask for a copy of your electric bill. They ask for a copy of your bank statement. She didn't ask for none of that. Now, me in my mind, I was saying, well, I'm not going to just send her a copy of my rent receipt, submit that online. I'm not going to do that, because then, when they do start cracking down on this fraud and what information they got, and they don't have enough information and stuff, then they might come after me. So me, myself, I took a picture of my photo ID. I uploaded it online on my online application. I took a photo of my rent receipt. I took a copy of my electric bill with my address on it, proving my address. I took a copy of my bank statement and what I got on SSDI, and I submitted it all online myself. But the worker did not ask for proof of anything but what I paid for rent. That is where the fraud is coming in. From the state departments of social services, where you live in your city, they're not doing their job. Now, there's some cities and different states that are doing their job. Let me give you an example. 30 years ago, I lived in Schenectady, New York. I had a job and I had to quit my job because CPS was going to take my children away. My girlfriend and my children got hurt and couldn't take care of the kids. And I was working. I worked it out with my job where I can go in later to take my kids to daycare. But then my job didn't want me coming in later anymore to take my children to daycare. And I said, look, I can't lose my kids to CPS because it's very hard to get them back. So I quit my job and I went down to social services and I told them I quit my job because CPS threatened to take my kids away. And I applied for help with my rent. I applied for food stamps and things like that. And you know what they told me? You quit your job, you're not working. So we can't help you. We can't help you with food stamps, but we can help your children. So I said, that's all that matters to me. Help my children. Before I moved from Rome, New York, down to here to Albany, New York, I lived in Rome, New York, okay? And I was applying for SSDI. Before I got SSDI, I went to social services for help, and I told them I wasn't working. I was applying for SSDI, and it was going through the system. I was waiting for a court date to go in front of the judge. And you know what they made me do? They made me sign a paper that said if they gave me help and I got money back in back pay from SSDI, I would pay social services back. I paid them back. Almost $6,000 I paid them back. I had to fill out that paper. I had to prove I was disabled. People were going into local social services departments and saying, well, I'm disabled, I cannot work, and they were giving them waivers. There was waivers back then. There was waivers. But certain cities and states weren't just giving the waivers out, but other cities and states like here in Albany, New York, was giving the waivers out to anyone. I know someone that is on food stamps that was getting a waiver for years, just saying, I'm disabled, I can't work. No proof, no SSI, no SSDI. They just got a letter in the mail that says they're considered able-bodied working adult, that in order to claim disability, they have to have a medical form filled out by a doctor that they're disabled, or they have to be on SSI or SSDI. Before, they weren't doing that here in Albany, New York. They are still not asking for all the information they should be to verify people are telling the truth. Where they live, who they live with. There is a lot of people out there, women out there, not only women, but men too. Women. There's women out there that are living with men. Their men are working, making $2,000 a month. The women are on social services. The women are getting Section 8, paying $82 a month in Section 8 for their rent, $82 a month, $800 apartment, but they're paying $82 in rent, $900 apartment, $1,000 apartment. They're only paying $82 in rent because they're getting Section 8. They're getting $200-$300 in food stamps, and they got men living with them, and not saying that the men are living with them. Their men are just paying the $82 a month in rent, and then their men are using their money for themselves or their woman, buying their woman stuff. It's crazy. There are hardworking people out there that need help, that cannot get help. There are people out there that need help that can't make ends meet even by working a full-time job. And then there's people that fraud the system and scam the system. Those are the people that I don't like and that I hate, because the real people that need real help can't get it, while all these other people fraud. And I'm not only going to say women, men too. You know, the new chief in command, we all know who he is. He made this able-bodied working adult thing, but people on food stamps that have children under the age of 14 get a waiver still. They don't have to work. And I think that's ridiculous. I think if you have kids under the age of 14, say they're 8 years old and they're in school full time, that parent should be working, not sitting home playing video games or doing whatever they want to do. They should be required to work. Everybody else is. Why are they not required to work? The chief in command's new law exempts people with children under the age of 14 from working. So that means these women that keep on popping out babies and having babies to get food stamps, they can continue to do that without working. That law should be changed. Okay? Now, it used to be if you had a child under the age of 18, I think you were exempt. Now they made it For a child under the age of 14, no. If you have school-age children, you should be made to work. You should not be able to receive social services and food stamps and not have to work or do anything because you have children. I'm sorry. You made the children. You should support the children as much as you can. Most of my jobs were all fast food jobs. I worked in McDonald's for 5 years, 6 years. I worked in Wendy's for 6, 7 years. I supported my children. When my children were younger, I got help once. That was it. I supported my children with my own money. I even supported my woman off of my own money because I didn't want her working. I didn't want somebody else watching my children. Okay? I supported my woman. I supported my children off of a Wendy's income, and I did it all by myself. I didn't get Section 8 back then. I didn't get WIC. I didn't even get WIC. I bought my own babies' formulas. You make the babies, you should be supporting them, period. Okay? And getting a job, period. You shouldn't be having men live with you. If you're on social services, Section 8, getting food stamps, and you got a man living with you that's making $2,000 a month, you're a scammer. And in my eyes, you're scum. You're ripping off the system. You're ripping off the system and making it bad for people that do need help, do require help, and should get help, but don't get help. So keep that in mind. I'm just sick of this whole situation. It's really sickening. But I wanted to say to the people out there that are afraid they're going to lose their food stamps, I would not worry about it or stress yourself out right now. But I do think the states and the cities need to be held responsible for this. I'm going to try to contact somebody myself to let them know what's going on. When I lived in Rome, they were strict. You had to be working or you had to submit proof of all this stuff. When I lived in Schenectady, New York, years ago, 30 years ago, I had to be working. Albany, New York, they were just giving food stamps to everybody. The state, the city you live in, the social services, those are the ones responsible for giving these people food stamps. Just walking in there, saying I'm disabled, not proving it, okay? They're the ones responsible, not Biden, not the chief in command now. I don't see how people don't see this. It's very eye-opening. Like I said, I submitted all this stuff by myself. I submitted my photo ID, my rent receipt, copy of electric bill with my address on it, copy of bank statement. This is stuff that people should be submitting, have to submit to prove who they are, where they live, who lives with them. Really, there should be a landlord statement filled out for every single person. And the landlord should have to fill that out to who's living with that person. Because there's a lot of people out there, like I said, living with their boyfriends that are not claiming that money. And they're living high on food stamps. They're living high by getting Section 8. And then they use their boyfriend's money for luxuries like new purses, new household stuff. And I think it's ridiculous that people are allowed to get away with this. So I'm going to try to contact someone, either the governor in my city or state people, to let them know what's going on with their local social services department. Because, there's a lot of social services department and food stamp workers that do the right thing, and social workers that do check the information. But, like I said, with the new chief in command law and stuff, my food stamp worker only wanted a picture of a rent receipt. That was enough proof for her. No, she should have asked for photo ID, copy of electric bill, copy of bank statement, proof that I get SSDI. She didn't ask for none of that. I submitted it myself because I wasn't going to be caught up in anything or down the road have them say, well, you're losing your food stamps because you didn't prove this, you didn't prove that. Now, if you're on SSI or you're on SSDI, they have ways of proving that. If you tell them that, they can look it up on the website. They have a way they can find out if you're really getting SSI or SSDI. But other than that, rent receipts, all that, people that live with other people, they should be getting proof of that. They should be asking proof that a woman has nobody living with her and supporting her. If a woman has a man living with her making $2,000 a month, she shouldn't be getting food stamps, Section 8, Medicaid, and all this other bull crap, okay? You got a man live with you making that much money? He should be supporting you, period. I don't care if you're married or not. You're letting him live in your household for nothing when you're only paying $82 a month in rent because you get Section 8. You're getting $200 in food stamps. You're getting Medicaid. It's ridiculous, guys. It needs to stop. Anyways, guys, I know this video is long. I'm sorry it's so long. I will be back with more on this and the USDA. And if they do put out more information on how they're going to make everybody reapply for food stamps, or if they put out information that they're just going to make everybody recertify like I think they're going to do, I will let you know in that video. See you all later.